is Friday, February 5th, 2021, and you're listening to Local News Live, a production of AOC Community Media in partnership with the Acadiana Advocate. Their team of journalists print the stories important to our community and state, and we are happy to read you some of those stories. You can hear Local News Live Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. on AOC 1, the AOC Community Media channel on YouTube, and on Cypress Street Radio at aocinc.org/CS Radio. You can find the print versions of these stories and more at theadvocate.com. We couldn't bring you this community service without the generosity of our volunteer newsreaders. Today we're joined by Daniel Rayburn. Again, thank you, Daniel, for the Marathon News Reading Week.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
All right, I'm going to let you take it away with the news. Thanks again for being here.
Thank you. Good morning, Acadiana. As I said, it is my pleasure to be here with you again today, bringing you the news. We have quite a few headlines, as we typically do, so we are going to jump right in. We will begin in the Acadiana area, and our first headline reads, Provisional Library Head Tapped. Board has 11 days to find interim director. And this is written by Claire Taylor. The Lafayette Public Library Board's plans to appoint an interim director Wednesday didn't go quite as planned. Instead, the board appointed a reluctant Larry Angel, library operations manager, to serve as provisional director for 11 days. That should give the board time to accept resumes from staff and appoint an interim director to serve for up to 6 months while a search is conducted for a permanent replacement after the sudden retirement of Director Teresa Elberson last week. Elberson's announcement came days after the board voted 5-2 to reject a Louisiana Endowment for the Humanities grant, part of its Who Gets to Vote series, with some board members saying the two moderators represented far-left views on voting rights without a speaker to represent the right view. Clashes between some board members and the former library director in part over micromanagement, along with media reports and public outrage over the board canceling the voting rights history discussion, hung over the special meeting Wednesday about replacing Elberson. Board President Doug Palumbo said Angel was well qualified for the temporary assignment because he knows the workings of the library system and the dynamics involved. Quote, "What do you need me to do? I want to clearly understand this right now before I accept this," Angel said, adding he wanted to know of any limitations. "I want to understand what I'm getting into based on the environment right now. I'm sure you all understand what I'm saying." Angel agreed to take on the job for 11 days with a 25% pay increase, quote, "just so the library can operate. At the moment, we can't do anything. No one can sign anything," he said. People are starting to ask a lot of questions, and vendors may soon call requesting payments. Also on Wednesday, the first meeting since the board rejected the endowment grant and set off a firestorm of public reaction, Palumbo again blamed the board's decision on Elberson for not securing a right-leaning speaker. Quote, "We asked for a fair, even-sided presentation from either side," he said, and asked Elberson to secure a conservative speaker. "To me, if anyone's at fault, it's her." Residents and another board member Wednesday chastised Palumbo for attacking Elberson without giving her the opportunity to defend herself. Some asked for the resignation of the 5 board members who voted to reject the grant. Palumbo and board member Landon Boudreau said Wednesday they weren't suggesting discussion facilitators had to represent both ends of the political spectrum about voting history. But on more current voter topics such as the Electoral College, voter ID laws, purging voter rolls, and the ability of felons to vote, which are controversial political topics. Jamal Taylor, a former library board member and Lafayette activist, accused some board members of pandering to a certain group of politicians and taking action that was racist and bigoted. The board, quote, "made a mockery of a lady who gave her life to the library," he said, speaking of Elberson, a 38-year library employee. During his tenure on the board, Taylor said, the librarian was in charge of programming and the board never voted on grants. The library's own programming policy gives, quote, "ultimate responsibility for programming to the library director," resident Jeremy Montez said. According to the library's programming policy, Sponsorship of a program, quote, does not constitute an endorsement of the content of the program or the views expressed by the participants. Program topics, speakers, and resources are not excluded from programs because of possible controversy. Montes asked why the board violated its own programming policy. When Montes said he got the policy off the library's website, Palumbo said he didn't know it was posted there. The American Library Association and United for Libraries wrote to the library board asking it to reconsider rejecting the grant. Quote, there should be no limiting qualifiers on programming or resources based on a speaker's background, and there is no justification for the exclusion of programming deemed to be unpopular or offensive by some in the community, no matter how vocal or influential, they wrote. And now, we'll move on to our next local headline, which reads, Lafayette retail sales hit record high. This is written by Adam Daigle. An explosion in retail sales in December led Lafayette Parish to record its highest yearly total sales, even after the slumping spring months at the start of the coronavirus pandemic. Total sales in the parish topped $667.5 million for the month, the second highest monthly total on record, behind only December 2014. It pushed the yearly total to $6.425 billion, eclipsing the 2014 record of $6.41 billion, set just before the economy took a hit from slumping oil and gas prices, according to data released Thursday from the Lafayette Economic Development Authority. December was also a record-setting month for sales in Youngsville, at $36.1 million, in Caring Crow at $33.5 million, and in Scott at $26.5 million, while the city of Lafayette's $466.8 million was its second highest total, behind the $475.5 million collected in December of 2014. The $1.2 billion in sales parish-wide during the holiday shopping season topped the $1.1 billion in sales in 2014. It also topped the Economic Development Agency's forecast of $1.1 billion, said President and CEO Greg Gautreaux. Quote, as we start a new year, it's important to remember that local keeps sales revenue in our community, which will be vital as we continue to deal with the ongoing pandemic and renewed concerns in the energy sector, Gautreaux said. This news, along with December's low unemployment numbers also released this week, certainly is welcome after many tough months for local businesses and their employees. Caring Crow's roughly 14% growth in yearly sales was the biggest gain among all municipalities, as it set a record at $310.5 million, its fourth straight year to set a record. Youngsville's sales grew by 12.2% to settle at $331.2 million, also its fourth straight year to set a record. And Scott's grew slightly to $266.4 million, the highest mark on record for the third straight year. Total sales in the city of Lafayette ended at just under $4.4 billion, slightly lower than the $4.43 billion in 2019. Other data points from the city for December include residents spent over $102 million in food purchases, the most recorded in a month. Food sales for the year topped $1 billion for the second straight year, but were just below the $1.05 billion recorded in 2019. Grocery store sales topped $27 million, the second highest amount on record. In the year of the pandemic, grocery stores topped $302 million in sales, a 10% spike over 2019's total, which also set a record. Restaurants finished strong with $35.4 million in sales, its highest total since before the pandemic began. Sales for the year ended at just below $363 million, 10% lower than 2019. Bars and nightclubs had $2.66 million in sales, the most since June. Due to the pandemic, sales for the year ended at just under $28 million, by far the worst year on record. Clothing sales ended the year at $150.3 million, by far the worst on record, and the sixth straight year to have a drop in sales. Furniture sales for the year are up 20% from a year ago, ending at $15.5 million for the best year since 2013. And finally, despite the influx of hotel business following the late summer hurricanes, hotel receipts ended at $46.3 million, a 16% drop from the 2019 total, which was the worst on record. And now, we will step away from the headlines momentarily to bring you a PSA. Everyone should have shelter, and the Louisiana nights are getting colder. Due to COVID-19 and concerns for community spread, there's been a dramatic decrease in available shelter beds. That means many experiencing homelessness may have no other option than to sleep on the street. Throughout this pandemic, Acadiana Regional Coalition on Homelessness and Housing has been able to utilize local hotel and motel rooms as a temporary housing solution. From there, case managers help our fellow Acadians transition to permanent housing. Arch is very proud of their success in keeping those they serve safe from COVID-19 and on their way to long-term stability. However, the number of homeless is growing, and Arch needs your help to get our neighbors out of the cold and into warm, safe housing. Can you help today? If so, go to archacadiana.org. If you would prefer to give by check, please mail to Arch, that's ARCH, at P.O. Box 3936, Lafayette, Louisiana, 70502. And now, we will return to headlines in the Acadiana area. And our next reads, UL President embraces voting rights program. Professors' participation defended. This was written by Ken Stickney. University of Louisiana at Lafayette President Joseph Savoy confirmed Thursday that the campus library has secured funding for a community discussion about voting rights history that the local library's board rejected last week. Details will be revealed at a later date, Savoy said. In a blog post Thursday afternoon, Savoy also defended the objectivity and qualifications of Theodore Foster, an assistant professor of history at UL, who was to be one of the facilitators for the discussion at the public library. The Who Gets to Vote discussion would have focused on two books, Bending Towards Justice by Gary May about the 1965 Voting Rights Act, and Vanguard, How Black Women Broke Barriers, Won the Vote, and Insisted on Equality for All by Martha S. Jones. Lafayette Public Library leadership successfully sought a $2,700 grant from the Louisiana Endowment for the Humanities to support the program, but its board rejected the funds, which were given to 10 public libraries in Louisiana, after suggesting the program would not present both sides of the issue. In his blog, Savoy said Foster is well qualified to present a meaningful and objective discussion on the topic. Quote, Dr. Foster is a dynamic and thoughtful scholar of Black life, culture, and politics in our nation. That he is qualified to facilitate this discussion and provide context to it is without question. The university, its students, and our wider community are fortunate to have him here, Savoy wrote. The library's board plunged into controversy last week after rejecting the community reading and discussion program on a 5-2 vote. The board doubled down on its position this week, blaming the library's former director for not securing someone to present an opposing view for the discussion. Quote, "The other side falls in the category of Jim Crow laws and the KKK," said Senator Gerald Boudreaux this week in a prepared statement. Boudreaux said he was working to help UL's Dupree Library secure the funding that had been intended for the Lafayette Public Library. Quote, "I agree we do need to discuss the other side, as history has proven that if we ignore the past, we will be doomed to relive those dark days," Boudreaux said. Savoy wrote that UL faculty members routinely lend their expertise in the discussion of important public issues. That's what Foster would have done. Quote, "Like his colleagues, Dr. Foster maintains a high standard of professionalism and balance in his teaching and public intellectual contributions based on his scholarly expertise. Our researchers embody this principle of community service and give our academic mission its heartbeat. Their engagement over the past year, and in every year, is not defined by political motives. Rather, it is driven by an intense desire to do what scholars do: remedy confusion with clarity, counter intransigence with intelligence, and offer fact in response to fiction. That's a scholar's job. It's a higher calling, one that Dr. Foster and faculty across campus answer every day. And I am proud of them for it," the blog concluded. And now, we move to our next headline, which reads, "Area plans set for pandemic-friendly carnival." This is by Megan Wyatt. Kim Veillon and Marty Thibodeau typically celebrate Mardi Gras by dressing in elaborate costumes at the Crew of Apollo Ball and throwing beads from atop a float in the Crew of Rio Parade. Veillon, a floral designer, and Thibodeau, an event planner and decorator, are usually busy working in the weeks and months leading up to their favorite holiday. Quote, "We live for Mardi Gras," Veillon said. "That's our holiday. It's in our blood. It's been in our blood since we were children." This year's revelry, of course, will be different. Veillon and Thibodeau recently constructed a small float with costumed mannequins and flashy decorations in front of their Lafayette home. They even managed to get barricades and a porta potty for their display. Their Montague drive home is one of the several stops on the pandemic version of a Mardi Gras parade, a series of decorated houses that people can drive by to view. Quote, "We do it to make people smile," Veillon said. "People stop by and take pictures. They stop by and say hi. It just brought some life and color back during a time of doom and gloom." Here are a few ways to celebrate Mardi Gras in the Acadiana area this year. There will be a decoration contest. If you're looking for a fun way to commemorate the holiday, consider decorating your home or business to brighten up the community. There are multiple decoration contests sponsored by neighborhoods, business associations, and individual crews. Anyone can enter a home in the Crew of Rio's decoration contest, which is sponsored by KATC TV and comes with a grand prize of float riding spots and throws for two in the 2022 Rio Parade. Quote, "We love looking at all the great ideas and expressions of the house floats in New Orleans," said Rachel Sudall, spokesperson for the Crew of Rio. "We wanted to see what happens here, and we thought the decorating contest could encourage people to decorate the front of their houses." Scott residents and businesses can enter a Mardi Gras decorating contest sponsored by the Scott Business Association. The free contest comes with prizes for the top home and business. Caleb Lege, president of the association's board of directors, said the hope is that the effort will boost spirits and perhaps business as people drive by in the days leading up to Mardi Gras. The association normally hosts a ball and parade, both which were canceled this year. Quote, "Mardi Gras is definitely an economic boom for businesses, so it's definitely going to be an economic hit for us this year. We're trying to keep the spirit alive," Lege said. Learn more about the Rio contest at katc.com/community or the Scott contest at facebook.com/scottbusiness. You can also register your address so others can visit your decorated home or business at the crewdecayenne.com. That is KREWEDEKANAILLES.com. There's also plans for drive-by parades. If driving by decorated homes sounds a bit lackluster, consider participating in a drive-by parade with other revelers. There will be a parade happening from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Friday at homes and businesses throughout Lafayette Parish. This year's theme is "Oh, the Places We Didn't Go." The parade will feature a few surprises, along with interactive opportunities on social media for those who can't participate in person, according to a spokesperson for the Crew de Cayenne. "It should be a fun time," said Olatunde Soyombo. "It's a good thing you can do with your kids and the whole family. Whether you can get in the car and go ride around, or you want to stay home and decorate the house. It's a safer way to Mardi Gras." The Drive-By Rio Parade will take place at 6:30 p.m. Saturday throughout the parish, piggybacking on the homes and businesses decorated as part of the Cayenne's event. Big 102.1 FM, which usually provides the soundtrack for Rio's parade, will provide festive music for people participating in the Drive-By Parade. Quote, "We're trying as desperately as we can to keep the spirit alive," Sudal said, "and we'll be back. Next year, we'll be off the chain." And there's going to be a king cake trail this year. If you've gone without your usual king cake fix because of remote working, fret no more. The fat part of Mardi Gras is perhaps the most pandemic-friendly part of the season. Folks at Lafayette Travel had compiled a handy guide to finding king cake at local eateries. In addition to the traditional cinnamon and filled favorites, you'll also find more innovative fillings and savory boudin king cakes as well. A few of the more interesting cake flavors include the cookies and cream cake at Poupart's, the cinnamon butter at Keller's Bakery, the turtle cake at Cajun Market Donut Company, and the wedding cake at Gambino's. Many spots also sell king cakes by the slice, if you're hoping to sample as many varieties as possible. Plan your king cake fix at LafayetteTravel.com. And if you're looking for ways to give back this season, you're in luck. If you're hoping to help out a community organization that is suffering because of canceled Mardi Gras events, consider participating in one of the two fundraisers that will benefit LARC. The nonprofit, which supports about 300 people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, relies on income from reselling donated Mardi Gras beads. It also provides about a dozen jobs for their clients who sort through and repackage for LARC's Beads and More store. Quote, "The community has been absolutely wonderful," said Carthy Guillet, job development manager for LARC. "As they've learned about what's happening, they've been coming by or calling the office to offer help. It's a wonderful thing." A reverse Mardi Gras parade will take place from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. Saturday at Rise Chiropractic in Broussard to bring in beads for LARC. People are encouraged to decorate their cars and throw bead donations to the business while enjoying music and Mardi Gras decor. Rise, located at 805B Albertsons Parkway, is also accepting bead donations through Mardi Gras. On Mardi Gras Day, Cafe Habana City at 911 Bertrand Drive is donating a portion of proceeds from the sale of Cuban sandwiches to the nonprofit. You can learn more about the organization and these efforts at Lafayette LARC, that's Lafayette LARC.org. And with that, we will once again take a short short break from the headlines to look at our Today in History, famous birthdays, and our daily horoscope. We'll start with our Today in History, which is brought to us by the Associated Press. Today is Friday, February 5th, the 36th day of 2021. There are 329 days left in the year. Today's highlight in history. On February 5th, 2020, the Senate voted to acquit President Donald Trump, bringing to a close the third presidential trial in American history, through a majority of senators expressing unease with Trump's pressure campaign on Ukraine that resulted in the 2 articles of impeachment. Just one Republican, Mitt Romney of Utah, broke with the GOP and voted to convict. On this day, in 1917, Mexico's present constitution was adopted by the Constitutional Convention in Santiago de Cuartero. The U.S. Congress passed, over President Woodrow Wilson's veto, an act severely curtailing Asian immigration. In 1971, Apollo 14 astronauts Alan Shepard and Edgar Mitchell stepped onto the surface of the moon in the first of 2 lunar excursions. In 1983, former Nazi Gestapo official Klaus Barbie, expelled from Bolivia, was brought to Lyon, France to stand trial. He was convicted and sentenced to life in prison. He died in 1991. In 1993, President Bill Clinton signed the Family and Medical Leave Act, granting workers up to 12 weeks unpaid leave for family emergencies. In 1994, white separatist Byron De La Beckwith was convicted in Jackson, Mississippi of murdering civil rights leader Medgar Evers in 1963 and was immediately sentenced to life in prison. Beckwith died on January 21, 2001 at the age of 80. In 2001, 4 disciples of Osama bin Laden went on trial in New York in the 1998 bombings of 2 U.S. embassies in Africa. The 4 were convicted and sentenced to life in prison without parole. In 2008, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, a guru to the Beatles who introduced the West to transcendental meditation, died at his home in the Dutch town of Volendam. He was believed to be about 90. 10 years ago today, the leadership of Egypt's ruling party stepped down as the military figures spearheading the transition tried to placate protesters without giving them the one resignation they were demanding, that of President Hosni Mubarak. 5 years ago today, President Barack Obama used a new jobs report to continue his victory lap on the economy, declaring the United States had, quote, the strongest, most durable economy in the world. The president spoke shortly after the Labor Department announced that U.S. employers added 151,000 jobs in January, pushing the unemployment rate of 4.9% from 5%. 1 year ago today, with white sheets covering them, people infected with the new coronavirus were led off of a Japanese cruise ship in the port of Yokohama, while the rest of the 3,700 people on board faced a 2-week quarantine in their cabins. And now, we'll take a look at today's famous birthdays. Actor Stuart Damon is 84 today. Tony-winning playwright John Guare is 83. Financial writer Jane Bryant Quinn has turned 82. Actor David Selby is 80 today. Football Hall of Famer Roger Staubach is 79. Movie director Michael Mann is 78. Actor Charlotte Rampling has turned 75 today. Actor Barbara Hershey is 73. Actor Christopher Guest is also 73 today. Actor-comedian Tim Meadows has turned 60. Actor Jennifer Jason Leigh is 59 today. Rock musician Duff McKagan from Velvet Revolver has turned 57. World Golf Hall of Famer Jose Maria Olazabal is 55. Actor-comedian Chris Parnell has turned 54. Rock singer Chris Barron of the Spin Doctors is 53. Singer Bobby Brown has turned 52 today. Actor Michael Sheen is also 52 today. Country singer Sarah Evans has turned 50. Country singer Tyler Farr has turned 37. Neo-soul musician Mark Schusterman is 36. And finally, actor-singer Darren Criss is 34 today. Now we will take a look at the daily horoscope. We'll begin with Aquarius, which is birthdays of January 20th to February 19th. Stand back, keep an open mind, and learn by observation. When you're uncertain, do your own thing and keep your plans to yourself. Self-improvement and personal growth are favored. For Pisces, which is February 20th to March 20th birthdays. Don't let anger set in when you should be focusing on reaching your goals. Set your sights on what's important to you. Refuse to let anyone or anything stand in your way. To Aries, which is March 21st to April 19th birthdays. Put your money and possessions in a safe place. Handle financial matters responsibly. Watch your budget. A contract may be challenged due to an unforeseen circumstance. For Taurus, which is birthdates of April 20th to May 20th. A discussion or plan may not go the way you want, but it will help you see what you must overcome. Evaluate your position, and you'll find an innovative way to reverse a problem you face. For Gemini, which is birthdates of May 21st to June 20th. You'll get everything under control if you take matters into your own hands. Don't let anyone push you in a direction that doesn't feel right. Use your intelligence and follow your instincts. For Cancer, which is June 21st to July 22nd birthdays. Invest in your ideas and future. A contract will have more to offer than you first thought. Get all your facts straight and make the necessary adjustments. You'll get what you want. To Leo, which is July 23rd to August 22nd birthdays. Don't worry about what others do. Choose the path that resonates with you. Physical improvement will fetch compliments, and personal growth will lead to enlightenment. Broaden your horizons. For Virgo, which is August 23rd to September 22nd birthdays. Stick to the truth when dealing with friends, relatives, and peers, and you will spare yourself grief. If you want to change, go about getting it the right way. Put honor and integrity first. For Libra, which is birthdates of September 23rd to October 23rd, reach out to friends, relatives, and peers. You'll gain insight into what's possible. Be prepared to do the bulk of the work yourself. Find out who you can rely on. For Scorpio, which is October 24th to November 22nd birthdays, you'll face a dilemma that can affect your reputation or relationship with a friend, relative, or peer. Think before you say or do something that will change your life. For Sagittarius, which is birthdates of November 23rd to December 21st. Don't reveal secrets. The things you share will become common knowledge in your circle. Spend more time on self-improvement and less with people who are trying to lead you astray. And finally, for our Capricorns, which is December 22nd to January 19th birthdates, keep your life simple, run your home efficiently, and stay out of trouble. If you get involved in other people's business, someone will accuse you of meddling. And now, we will move back to our headlines. Our next is from the entertainment section, and it reads, Pandemic Poetry. Rodell et Aaliyah explores the distance. And this is by John Wirt. Jeffrey Rodell has been known for years in Baton Rouge as a video producer and journalist. but many didn't know that he also writes poetry. Quote, "I didn't pursue the submission gauntlet or put out a collection together," Rodell said of his verse writing. "It was more of a creative thing, just for me, and I could write things down as they came to me." Rodell's poetry output accelerated last spring during the coronavirus pandemic. As he, like millions of others, worked from home, the year's tumultuous events fueled his poetry. Quote, "I had quiet time alone with my thoughts," Rodell said. "At the same time, I was taking in all the extreme news coming from every direction. That combination encouraged me to put more thoughts onto paper." Rodell's pandemic poems are now published, albeit in audio rather than book form. Distance, available as a physical CD package and a digital release, combines poetry, art, and music. Borrowing a Latin phrase that translates to Rodell and others, he credits the highly collaborative project to Rodell et alia. Poems came quickly to Rodell during the early months of the pandemic. Writing them was therapeutic, and unlike some of the other writings he does, his verse fell easily on the page. Quote, "Video writing is labored," Rodell said. "Many drafts and scrutiny. This was the opposite of that, so maybe that's why it felt so healthy and different." Rodell invited musicians to craft soundscapes around his poetry, in part because he didn't want his voice to be the single sound listeners heard. Quote, "I got bored thinking about hearing only my voice for 30 minutes, he said. I'm sure there are many talented performers and poets who captivate someone's attention with only their voice, but that's not me." In July, Rodell launched a 3-month collaboration with some of his musician friends, including Ben Harrington, Casey McAllister, Emily Scholl-Smith, Scott Campbell, Cohen Hartman, Norbert Redman, and Barrett Black. The back and forth between the writer and the musicians varied from him asking for an honest response to a poem to having extended conversations. Rodell wrote all of the verse on Distance except the middle stanza of the poem The Last Strawberry. Thinking of that poem as a conversation, he asked New Orleans poet Monique Lorden to write and recite that section of the poem. Quote, "I wanted to have voices that speak directly from an African American experience because I have no frame of reference for that," Rodell said. Brandon Lewis, a Southern folk artist in Baton Rouge whose work depicts African American families and religious scenes, is another of the album's voices. Lewis granted Rodell permission to include part of a taped interview, originally conducted for a magazine article about the artist in The Summer Suns. Quote, "That's a real conversation that Brandon and I had," Rodell said. A poet who's never read his poetry in public, Rodell is reluctant to call his Distance recordings a performance. Quote, "Any performance you're hearing is how I was feeling that day," he said. I wasn't thinking about an audience so much as trying to express what the words meant to me." As for Rodell et alia's potential audience, Rodell knows that the project doesn't easily fit a category. Quote, "People who like indie rock and electronic music, it's not quite for them," he said. "People who are poetry heads, it's not for them either. But maybe the overall theme of being distanced from something will resonate with people. Whether it's the distance from people in your life or the distance in walls and bridges that exist in society." Rodell's attention to detail includes his CD packaging. He recruited Edward Prumuck, LSU's art professor emeritus, to paint the dramatic cover art. New Orleans artists Rebecca May and Julie Odell created interior imagery. Prumuck, Rodell said, quote, "is a towering figure to me. It turns out he's enamored with poetry and was excited about having his painting on the cover. It says distance in a beautiful way. I couldn't have imagined any other image on the cover." The Distance CD is available at wonderSouth.com/store/distance-CD-Rodell-et alia, which is spelled ETALIA. The digital version of Distance will be available February 19th at Rodell, which is ROEDELETALIA.bandcamp.com. next headline, which is a state headline. And it reads, Vaccine eligibility expands. Governor says increase in doses makes move possible. And this is written by Sam Carlin. Louisiana will allow people who are 65 and older to access COVID-19 vaccines starting Monday, as the state received more doses and sees appointments slowing, officials said Thursday. A move that will bring the number of people eligible for the shots to more than 1 million of the state's roughly 4.6 million residents. Governor John Bell Edwards announced the expansion at a news conference Thursday, saying an increase in doses made the move possible. Up until now, people 70 and older, a list of healthcare workers, and residents and staff of long-term care facilities such as nursing homes have been able to get the shots. Aside from the 250,000 people between the ages of 65 and 70, the governor is giving vaccine access to top state officials who sit on his unified command group, people working the March and April elections, all first responders, and some other state and local emergency response personnel. The governor is expected to receive his first shot next week. In all, roughly 275,000 people will become newly eligible for the shot starting Monday. That brings the total eligible population to nearly 1.2 million. Quote, because supply of vaccine doses to our state has also increased, I feel much more comfortable going down to the age of 65 and above, Edwards said. Louisiana has received an uptick in doses recently from several sources. The Biden administration increased the state's weekly allocation by about 16% this week, to around 67,000 doses. That number will increase by about 5% next week. Plus, the state is redirecting roughly 15,700 doses from a federal partnership with CVS and Walgreens that were to be used on residents and staff of long-term care facilities because the program was moving slowly. And starting February 11th, the federal government is expected to start sending roughly 14,000 additional doses per week to Walmarts around Louisiana as part of a new program to speed up immunization. Dr. Joe Cantor, the state health officer, said in addition to the new doses, the health department has heard from providers that appointments are starting to slow after older adults flooded phone lines and websites of pharmacies, clinics, and hospitals that were receiving doses in recent weeks. Shortly before former President Donald Trump left office in mid-January, administrative officials told states to immediately begin giving shots to people 65 and older after seeing a slow pace of shots across the country. Edwards hadn't followed suit, citing huge demand among people already eligible in the state. At least 29 other states have already expanded vaccine access to people 65 and older. Cantor also said Louisiana is expanding shots to people 65 and older because data shows these people are at a much higher risk from the virus. Still, the state expects relatively flat shipments of the vaccine for the next 3 weeks, Cantor said. The governor also noted a lack of doses is still the, quote, limiting factor in the state's vaccination program. In all, Louisiana has given 404,007 people at least one COVID-19 vaccine shot, and more than 500,000 doses have been administered overall. But Pfizer and Moderna's vaccines require 2 doses. About 56% of people who have received a vaccine shot so far are 70 or older, according to Louisiana Department of Health statistics. Governor Edwards said teachers are next in line, along with a list of other frontline workers the state released several weeks ago. But that list is not, quote, written in stone, Edwards said, and changes could still be made. The governor's administration is also worried about the so-called UK variant of COVID that is more transmissible and that officials believe is already circulating in the state. 5 cases have been confirmed, but Cantor said that the number is almost certainly much higher. Although cases and hospitalizations have dropped recently, the Edwards administration pointed to data showing January was the second deadliest month of the pandemic, behind April. The governor called the vaccine effort a, quote, race against time as the new strain threatens to create another surge this spring. Louisiana's vaccine effort relies on patients navigating a patchwork of scheduling systems at hundreds of different providers across the state. The health department publishes a list of providers that are receiving vaccines each Monday on its website. Julie Swan, the department head of Industrial and Systems Engineering at North Carolina State University, who analyzes the public health effects of the pandemic, said demand is far outstripping supply nationwide, especially when the states expand priority groups. When providers open up appointments and get a rush of patients, Swan said people who have better access to technology, people with computer skills, and those with time on their hands are advantaged, which can lead to inequities in the vaccine rollout if left unchecked. Edwards said the state system for vaccine delivery avoids the pitfalls of opening up shots without making appointments, wherein patients in some places have waited hours in person for the shots they may not receive. He also said people can call 211 to find out which providers with vaccines are close to them, and the administration is working with grassroots groups to help connect people to vaccine appointments. Quote, "While it's frustrating, I'll tell you we've been administering doses as fast as we're able to receive doses," Edwards said. Louisiana ranks 16th in the U.S., including the District of Columbia, and the number of doses administered per capita. The state is outpacing most of its neighbors besides Arkansas, according to data from the U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention. So, who is newly eligible as of Monday in the state of Louisiana? It will include people 65 and older, unified command group in charge of emergencies, including cabinet secretaries, the attorney general, commissioner of administration, executive secretary of public service commission, among other top administrators. State and local COVID-19 emergency response personnel and first responders, and March and April election workers. And now, we will move towards the world of sports. We'll take a look at our sports headline, and it reads, George Williams, perfect examples of Cajun's recruiting philosophy. Lafayette Parish standouts epitome of what UL coach Napier seeks in recruits. And this is written by Kevin Foote. In so many ways, Acadiana defensive end Cameron George and Karen Crow running back Kendrell Williams are the epitome of what UL coach Billy Napier wants in a recruit. Both have strong family ties. Both are quiet with strong wills off the field and make huge impacts on the field. Both play as hard as anyone on their teams. Both possess the ability to focus on the task at hand and avoid distraction. Both are plenty willing to put their team's fortunes over their own concerns. And being Lafayette Parish standouts coming off state championship seasons, both George and Williams are a clear example of UL's inside-out recruiting philosophy of starting the process at home. So the attraction couldn't have made more sense Wednesday when George and Williams were two of the 9 high school signees added to UL's 2021 recruiting class. Quote, Kendrell is a good person, Napier said. I think he comes from a really special family. I think he's been raised with certain expectations. The guy is a blue-collar guy. He's a worker. He's very respectful. He's got a great work ethic. Napier said he still remembers the first time he met the 6'2", 245-pound George. He has a certain intensity about him that I really like, Napier said. I can remember the first time I met him was about a year ago around this time. He came over and I met him and I said, you know what? That guy's the right kind of guy. Both were for their respective teams. After carrying the Golden Bears to the quarterfinals as a junior with 1,935 yards and 25 scores on 244 carries, Williams carried it less carried it less in 2020 in hopes of keeping him fresher for the playoffs. He still finished with 964 yards and 15 touchdowns, while also catching 8 passes for another 3 scores. Quote, "It really did work out perfectly, to be honest," Williams said. "I felt really good that we were able to overcome the coronavirus. We were able to do all the right things to protect ourselves and stay corona-free." Williams was completely ready to sign with UL in December, but Napier loved his reason for waiting until February. Quote, "The reason I didn't sign in December is because I didn't want any extra attention, because I wanted to focus on winning the state championship," he said. Plus, signing in February didn't really change anything. For George, waiting worked out well for him as well. Quote, "I feel like it worked out well this way," George said. "I was really able to take some time and think about it. Am I really making the right decision? Talking to my family, to my brothers, the faculty at my school, so I feel like it helped me take some time to make sure I'm making the right decision." George earned Class 5A All-State and All-Metro Most Valuable Player honors after finishing the season with 33 tackles, 21 assists, 11 sacks, 13 stops behind the line, 20 hurries, and 4 pass breakups. Quote, "Those are big honors," George said. "I'm very blessed to have those because I really worked hard for those, and my coaches put me in a position to make plays in order to help the team win." It was a very fun time having guys out there with great leadership like LT, Walter Bob, and Derek Bresser. "I'm fortunate that I was able to experience relationships with those guys and build chemistry with them to go out with a bang in my last year." Napier said his staff certainly took notice of the Rams' defense. Quote, "Personally, I tell our staff all the time, Acadiana, they play defense over there," Napier said. "I mean the effort, the relentless approach, the physicality. He brings that mindset, that expectation that we would like." Being from the backyard and certainly playing at a place like Acadiana, it's a feather in his cap when it comes to our evaluation process. That's for sure. Williams can seemingly do it all. He won the 400 meters at state as a sophomore, has won a state championship and a state runner-up in wrestling, is now a state champion in football. Quote, "He's a really unique competitor," said Napier, who would also like Williams' focus when asked if he's still riding the wave of the football state title. "I'm still excited, but we all kind of moved on to other sports and have goals to achieve in other sports, so we've kind of put that aside for the next sport," Williams said. Likewise, both had their eyes on Napier's Cajuns as well this past season. Quote, "It was really cool to see the program do such big things this year," George said. "It was my first time seeing stuff like that from UL. It was a new thing to see, and it was really a culture change. This season really put the program on the map." As a running back headed to the program that just lost Elijah Mitchell and Trey Regis, Williams especially took notice of how many true freshmen got meaningful snaps for the number 15th ranked Cajuns this past fall. Quote, "It was exciting," Williams said. "They had a lot of young players. I'm going to be a young player too going into the next season. They had a lot of young players going off the whole season, like Kenron Lacey, Errol Rogers, and Dante Fleming. A lot of them were doing big things on the offense. That kind of opened up my eyes that I want to do the same when I get there." That was our final headline of the morning. Before we finish up, we will take a look at the funerals today in the Acadiana area. And they include Loretta Carrier, with service at St. Elizabeth Seton Catholic Church at 11 a.m. Marcus Denias, with service at St. John the Evangelist Catholic Church in Lafayette at 10 a.m. Martel de Runen, with service at Fountain Memorial Funeral Home in Lafayette at 11 a.m. And finally, Ella Moe, with service at Assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary Catholic Church at 11 a.m. And with that, this has been Local News Live for February 5th, 2021. I've been your reader, Daniel Rayburn. Please join us at 9 a.m. Monday through Friday on AOC 1, Cypress Street Radio, or the AOC Community Media channel on YouTube. You can read these stories and more at theadvocate.com and find out how to volunteer and more at aocinc.org. That's all for today. We'll see you again on Monday. Have a great day and a great weekend, Acadiana.